Okay, we're going live with the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, Rodney Fong, Becky with the great hair, Rodney with the great hair, otherwise known as. My name is Manny Acutiel, and I'm the owner of Manny's. And you're tuned into Manny's Super Civic Cyber Conversations right now, where we're bringing civic programming to you, to your living rooms, your bedrooms, your foyers, hopefully inside your home, or wherever you are on your mobile devices. Thank you very much for tuning in. We appreciate it. If at any time you want to ask a question to Rodney or myself, you can type it into the Q&A box. We're open books over here. And secondly, if you like what you hear, you can screenshot your screen and you can tag us at Welcome to Manny's or tag it the Chamber of Commerce at, I don't know what the tag is actually. Do you know what the tag is, Rodney?
sfchamber.com.
At sfchamber.com. All right, Rodney Fong, hi.
Hello, thank you for having me in your kitchen living room area.
This is my kitchen. These are my plants. Usually I do my interviews from over there, but the sun is really going strong right now. I'm drinking my Earl Grey tea because Ellie kind of got me on an Earl Grey tea kick today. I interviewed her earlier. So this is a really important time for you. You recently became the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, huh?
Yeah, it's been just a little over a year since I took this role. And my background, though, has been in city works, in private business.
Yeah.
My grandfather very quickly opened the Wax Museum down at Fisherman's Wharf in 1962. And I had grown up at Fisherman's Wharf running the Wax Museum along with other retail stores and restaurants, and just grew that as a tourism destination. So always had interest in the city. My great-grandmother was born in San Francisco in 1898. And just have this long lineage, long love for San Francisco, like many of us do. Whether you're here for 5 generations or 5 days, it doesn't really matter. It grows on you.
I want to ask you about, so I'm 30 years old, okay? I'm not going to ask you your age, but I'm 30 years old. When you were my age, did you see yourself as someone who would do well in a moment of crisis? Do you kind of feel like you're well positioned constitutionally as Rodney Fong for this moment right now?
That is a very intuitive question, and I have to answer the question yes. And I have to answer the question that I always worry about the city, have always as a kid, even at 15 years, but at 30 years old. I've always wanted to follow the city and how it grows, left, right, center, doesn't matter, but the evolution of it. In a very strange way, when you ask the question, I've always imagined, dreamt I would somehow, someday be in a position to help the city post-disaster, post-crisis. Now, I've had programmed myself to always think about earthquake, and have sat on many different organizations and subcommittees around seismic work or NERT training. But this was an unexpected disaster. But I guess in a short way of answering your question, I feel very comfortable being in this position at this particular time. Not that we have the answers, but just comfortable.
One more point, one more just curiosity on this. I feel like there's 2 pieces of this pie that are particularly, I guess, meaty if you eat meat pies. I've never really been a meat pie kind of guy, but I think some people eat meat pies. So we're in a meaty pie, and there's 2 big meaty pie pieces. There's the public health piece and there's a business piece. And you are in charge, frankly, of you represent business in San Francisco. Tell me about the feeling of weight that you might feel on you right now, representing the chamber and business in this really unprecedented time in our city and our nation's history. What does that feel like, Rodney?
I mean, it's weighty. Let me sort of separate or combine the health question and the business question.
Yeah.
We have to follow the health pathway before we can think about rushing to open for business. That will be a grave mistake if we rush ourselves into something. The school system is directly connected to our commerce. And all those parents who are now homeschooling right now, if we can't make our schools safe and give them comfort to reopen schools, our business sector will never really catch up or unroll and open up to full robust piece. So, I mean, your real question, I feel the weight. There are a lot of great people that are on our staff in our city. I think we really want to pull everybody together. There are great ideas. San Francisco for generations has never been short of great ideas and ingenuity and creativity. This is a
Hmm.
whole new world, Manny. We have
Hmm.
nothing but creative opportunity in front of us. It is a blank canvas to some degree.
Hmm.
It is a
Hmm.
level of playing field to some degree as well. And so I think we all, hopefully you sort of feel it in this little time of break to step back, take a little break, maybe for the first time in a long time, stop and smell the roses.
Hmm.
The great things about San Francisco are parks, or just even your neighbor next door that you hadn't really spent time because you were rushing to your next
Right.
interview. But here's a chance for us to step back and reimagine, reinvent San Francisco, rebuild San Francisco.
So I just want to respond to that and say, I'm really glad that you're in the chair and that you're doing this job. It's been nice getting to know you over the last couple of years, and you have very steady leadership. So I want to say publicly how glad I am that you're doing this.
Thank you, man.
So the chamber represents large businesses, medium-sized businesses, and small businesses. How are you thinking about, well, first of all, how do you feel like those three sectors are being affected by this differently? And then how do you decide how to expend your political capital and your effort and energy helping each of those sectors?
Yeah. Um, they all are three legs of a stool, and that you can't live without one of them. However, small business and workforce is really the backbone. So, I don't think you can have a city with just large business in it. There's no point
Hmm.
of the city. There's no point of the culture. There's no point of
Hmm.
collectively gathering good talent. And that's what
Hmm.
San Francisco has been known for, is the gathering of talent. I
Yeah.
think UC Berkeley and Stanford to the south have been part of the reason that Silicon Valley and San Francisco have been this center force of ingenuity and brains and smarts and creativity. So I think we need to focus on, obviously, small business got really crushed here. And the reason why they're crushed is because the capital doesn't exist to ride out a 6-month period, or even to reinvest when they want to be able to open up. It's of concern of ours. It's at the chamber, one of our top priorities is to try to fight and find resources for small business, SBA loans being one of them, and guiding over the last 4 weeks literally hundreds of small businesses to the SBA loan process. That's still unanswered, as you know,
Yes.
and hopefully
I
there's
do
more
know.
funding coming next week for that. On the medium-sized businesses, they depend on the small businesses, whether they're a vendor of them, whether they're employees or spouses or employees. And so it's very much a symbiotic relationship, but I think we do need to start at the ground level, at the street level. And
Hmm.
when we
Hmm.
rebuild things, same thing, we have to start at the ground level and come up. As far as the big companies, they are the rock for San Francisco. Some of them are large employers. They have significant input on real estate and the trends and the investment trends of San Francisco. So we absolutely can't ignore that. We need each other. But to answer your question, is one more important than another? No. One arm
Hmm.
of the starfish is not more important than the other arm of the starfish.
How you, I'm sure, are in communication with other Chamber of Commerce and other your counterparts around the country. Um, how is San Francisco's kind of complexion as it relates to percentage of small business versus large business? How is that different than other large municipalities that are dealing with this?
Yeah, I was on a phone call this morning with Memphis, Tennessee, and um, Louisiana State was on, and
Hmm.
I think we are very unique. And there's just no way to. We're not better necessarily, but we're just
Hmm.
very unique that we have
Hmm.
all of these different choices and all this. When we talk about diversity, we're talking generally about gender diversity or
Hmm.
sexual diversity, but the diverse types of industry that we have is very complex, which is great. I think it also makes it very difficult to try to solve and recover because we have so many different factors and
Hmm.
factions, and geographically we're complex as well. I mean, San Francisco is a freaking peninsula,
Hmm.
accessible by 2 bridges and a narrow 101 and 280. So we are, in a sense, an island, and we have to
Hmm.
think a little bit of ourselves as an island who then allows people to come in to swell to double the size during the daytime. So there's a lot of complexity to it. Um, the other cities and states, I think, are feeling the exact same challenges. What is unique is that everybody's faced with the same challenges and the same cards. We're all going to deal with them differently because we have different resources, but we're all dealt the same cards here.
So I did do some research, which I don't normally do before these calls, but I did for this one. And in 2018, there were 102,000 active business registrations in San Francisco, 102,000 roughly. And of those 102,000, 99,000 were considered small businesses. There were businesses of 100 or less employees. 2,700 were businesses with 100 and more. And so there were, the one thing that's important to note is those are sole proprietorships, about half of those are non-sole proprietorships. But if you just look at the number of businesses, it's like 99-1 considered small business versus businesses. So that's obviously due to a lot of planning and purpose, but we are a small business town if you just look at the makeup of the number of businesses in our city. I'm going to ask you a question that, I want your honest answer. How do you think the city, state, and federal government have done today? How do you think they've done? What kind of job do you think they've done? Well, how would you grade them in terms of their support of small businesses and non-small businesses so far in this crisis?
In the crisis, I think our mayor's done a great job. I think the numbers tell the story about, it seems that extra week of shelter in place did us huge favors.
Yeah.
Literally saved lives. And I don't know if we know the actual science of that, or we just got lucky, or we were pre-exposed, or what, but I think she's done a great job, Mayor Breed. I think our governor's doing a great job as well, and aligning with our West Coast states for science and making decisions over science versus politics, I think is very important. This is our own safety, our own.
Oh, I meant with the relief packages that they've deployed so far. The city was very early with the $1 million OEWD grant thing, and then the no interest loans and pushing back registrations. The state has done some stuff. Do you think they've done enough?
Yeah, I think there's two different ways to look at that, Manny. I think you can look at monies that can go out to help businesses, and then you have to also look at the savings, whether they're tax reliefs, whether they're actually, what we were able to do is push off property taxes one whole month. That's a lot of money. That's in some cases $250,000 for some people, for some business owners and property owners to hold on to those employees for one more month.
Yeah.
I think that we got some other tax measures moved this week as well, which Jay Cheng can give you more information on. But those savings are important, and it's all going to add up. There is not one, even with the SBA loan, not one silver bullet that's going to help everybody equally. But all these different things that have been added up to pretty good. So can we use more? Yes, of course. How long is this going to go on for? We don't know. And,
hey, Rodney, do you think that there's any legs to the insurance commissioner stuff about getting insurance companies to cover some of this stuff as business interruption, or do you think it's not going to go anywhere?
We were able to insert language that hopefully helps businesses make business interruption insurance claims. I don't know if there have been maybe a few cases where they've been successful. I'm sure the insurance companies are nervous about opening that door, and probably just like us, they're looking for federal help as well. So I mean, you can see it all trickle up. Whether you're a tenant asking for your landlord to give you a little break, that landlord needs a break. Whether the landlord's asking for a break on the insurance company, that insurance company needs a break. And so it's just a trickle up problem.
I see that, and I'm not a scream and yell kind of guy. I like to know what the facts are. I see myself as pretty reasonable, and I get it. If everyone is going to ask their landlords for relief, how are those landlords going to pay their bills? And then the banks, if the banks all of a sudden aren't getting their mortgage payments, how are the banks going to pay their bills? For some reason, though, I'm finding it hard to have a lot of empathy for insurance carriers and banks vis-a-vis tenants and employers, because we employ the most vulnerable, right? And I don't think the banks and the insurance companies are as vulnerable as the hourly wage workers that work in our service industry, you know? And so it's just been a little bit of an empathy exercise for me.
I hear you, Manny, but I don't know their businesses honestly well enough to give that opinion, because I think what we're showing is that for all of America, we're showing what a thin veneer and how leveraged all of us were, whether it's a business loan, a home loan, you know, we all were running on thin margins. And for
Yeah.
something like this to happen with, you know, cash is king and not that many people are sitting on a pile of cash to be able to ride something out like that out. And it's a systemic problem.
So I have one more question on this, and then I want to get to the recovery task force. You know, it seems kind of like the recovery is going to be, or the reopening is not going to be an immediate snapback. How can the city and maybe the state help small businesses ride it out?
I think we can start to look at and ask and have the hard discussion about streamlining business permits and allowing businesses to have an easier entry point into opening up, to recovering, to maybe not paying an outdoor seating fee, to maybe not paying an awning fee, and not paying a sidewalk encroachment fee. All those little things, as you know, as a business owner, add up and they can get in your way and almost sort of break your spirit in that you have a goal, you have a passion, you want to get there. Converting in sometimes a simple cafe into a bookstore or vice versa, as you know, is a troublesome thing that takes 6 months, and you're paying rent on that place for 6 months. We need to smooth that all out. I think it sounds very simple and maybe it's a problem that we had before, but I think actually the solution is still right in front of us. And to get people back on their feet and get small businesses back on their feet, we need to make the pathway as easy and smooth and glide as much as possible.
Got it. I want to ask you about the recovery task force. I think you actually have some questions for me. And then folks, if you have questions for Rodney Fong, you can start typing them into the Q&A box right now. So my last question is about this recovery task force, which is getting a lot of attention right now, which you are on. So what stage is the task force in right now? Is it like still being gathered together? Has it already started meeting? What's going on with it?
There've only been a few meetings thus far. I am one of the co-chairs along with Carmen Chu, Jose Cisneros, and Rudy Gonzalez. The mayor obviously assembled that quick team. There's going to be a larger task force of about 80 people or so, including government staff, and then hopefully someone and representatives from every sector: hospitality, housing production, arts, airport, etc. And we will have the roundtable interviews with each of those sectors, hopefully, get all the way around, get their input. And I really think my suggestion is that we really ask people, including yourself, what are the short-term goals that you can execute when you reopen that are low cost, low-hanging fruit, no cost? What are medium-term 1 to 2 year fixes? And really, here's an opportunity for all of us to sit back for a second and calmly say, what is San Francisco? What can it be in 2040? What are these wild ideas that have been bugging us forever? Maybe they're land use related things, maybe they're transit things, maybe they are not investing into underground transit like we should be doing to alleviate the pressures on the street. Maybe it's removal of bikes, cars, pedestrians, whatever it is, it's a magic combination. Now is a great time to talk about that. And I think the little baby changes we're going to make in the immediate term will eventually get us to those long-term goals if we're thoughtful about it.
And what's the timeline for the work of the recovery task force being done, i.e. the recommendations being submitted to the mayor?
That's the whole moving target on this thing, is we don't even know when we're going to get out of shelter in place. But I hope we get on it faster. I hope that we view it as a very dynamic recovery plan. I don't even know if you want to call it a plan, but maybe more like a playlist where you have certain things as curveballs get thrown to us that we can call in that play, call in that plan, execute that. I have suggested that I really want to try to make sure that we have a weighted matrix for every recommendation that comes back to this recovery task force, that we weigh it. How much is it going to cost? What's the implementation time? What's the risk reward value to it? And then at that particular time, when we're in a particular section, time of recovery, then maybe we can pull down that idea.
And can you assure me that there will be people who own small businesses as part of the task force?
there's a very large small business contingency.
Great. Good. Those are all my questions. Now
Yeah.
your turn.
First of all, we have known each other for a few years now, and I've been watching you grow. Served on the planning commission when you were applying for and building your space out. And to be honest, I wasn't quite sure what it was when you were described it, because it was this couch setting, open form coffee shop, maybe a kombucha, maybe a White Claw at the same time. And I have seen it in person. And
no White Claw.
Okay,
There's no White Claw. No, gross. What do you take me as, White Claw? I'm not going to serve White Claw at my bar. Definitely not.
But you have brought in some very compelling, controversial, provocative guests. And it's not your line of questioning, but the type of people that you bring in are fascinating. I'm curious in this, especially this online thing, if anybody really is the sponge to understand firsthand one-on-one conversation like this, what are the best ideas and where San Francisco wants to go, where it can go? Manny, in Manny's head, has a lot of these ideas rattling around up there. And I want to know how you digest them, if you should digest them, if you should combine them into a book, story, movie, or whatever, or maybe report back out to the people who don't have the advantage of having these great one-on-one conversations, how you take all this wealth of information between your two ears and your AirPod and turn it even more so, the good that you're doing, and turn it out into the public.
It's interesting you should ask that, because, I really try to just let myself and what we do to be kind of a vector and a platform for other people to learn. And so even though like I'm here and my face is here and I got my name on my shirt and my name on my business, I actually I do a lot of work to try to pull myself back and, create space for the community to ask you questions. That's always been my goal, is to just facilitate conversations from happening. And so I very rarely, you might notice, actually provide my own prescriptions and provide my own ideas, because I don't want to influence other people who might not have those same ideas from me from feeling like they have access to a conversation. So I don't think about it as much. I mean, I do as a small business commissioner, and I've been able to kind of untangle it a little bit there. But I have to tell you, I have learned so much since opening Manny's about how San Francisco works, the inner dynamics, the politics, the state, democratic politics. I have been able to interview so many amazing people. Next week, I'm interviewing Tom Perez, who's the DNC chair, before Dolores Huerta, after Cory Booker, and after Stacey Abrams. And it's just like, I'm learning. I am a sponge, and I'm learning all these things. But right now, I'm just focused on providing as many opportunities for the public to learn along with me as I can.
And do you think you are, with meeting all these great people, able to put together groupings and say, hey, Cory Booker, you really ought to meet so-and-so, or your thoughts really align, actually would be amplified if you met so-and-so?
I don't do that. I don't do that on the national level so much. I mean, maybe a little bit, but I think on the local level that's happening. I have to just, between us chickens, this homelessness and the hotels issue is something that's come up in a lot of my interviews. I interviewed the mayor. I interviewed Jeff Kosinski. I interviewed Matt Haney. I interviewed Hillary Ronen. I interviewed Kevin Carroll from the Hotel Council yesterday. I'm interviewing Trent Rohr on Monday. And so there's a little bit of like, hey, I talked to the mayor about this, and she said that, and what about that? And then, talk to Matt Haney, and he said this, and what do you say to that? And is that real? Or and then so I am in a way kind of passing the notes around in the telephone, and I have been able to do a fair amount of that. I interviewed the director of the mayor's office of housing. I interviewed Jeff Kosinski, and then I talked to some of the homeless advocates. I've interviewed everyone in city politics, it feels like. And so sometimes I can be a good message sender and connecting people that way. And the only piece I'd say is we've been able to create a large community of people that are now comfortable giving money to candidates. And so when I bring a candidate to Manny's, there's a network of people, thousands of people that are now having access to candidates by me bringing them to the space. It's important.
And not to put you on the spot, but a little bit, now that you've learned more than most about the hotel homeless potential.
You are putting me on the spot.
What do you think? I mean, viable, not viable, crazy, impossible?
Um,
Given
Not
what you know.
great. I think the devil is in the details. It just is.
Yeah.
I think there's a difference between being a legislator and an executive. And the job and the responsibility of a legislator is to advocate for the issues that are important to your constituents and to your people, and to try to put them up front. And it's no surprise that the legislators who have been putting this up front are the people whose constituents are most affected by being unhoused and the situation with our homeless population. Mayor Breed has a different job. She has a budget to balance. She's got $1 billion to find. She has a public health crisis to maintain. And so her priorities are not necessarily the same as the legislators who are in the Board of Supervisors. So I see where both sides are coming from. I believe the mayor says she really wants to house everyone in the house. I believe her. And I believe Matt Haney and Hillary Ronen when they say that this can be done. I think it can be done. And so I see the push and pull. I see the tension between both. And I think it's hard. I think you don't know, the homeless population, however many thousands of them, it's a diverse community. So I really get the difficulty of putting folks into hotel rooms who might do harm to themselves, harm to other people, harm to people who are staffing them. But I also, having spent a lot of time in the unhoused community in the Mission, I know that a lot of people are not dangerous and could really use a place to stay.
Yep.
So I think it's good that Hillary and Matt are pushing the mayor to see how many people can be put into hotel rooms. But I also really do understand the mayor and saying it's not so simple.
Yeah, it is not simple, but back to our earlier conversation, this is a time I think where we can have those kind of wild conversations. And if, wherever we end up, we should be at least pat ourselves on the back for having the nerve to have the conversation, even though it may not turn out exactly by how one party feels it should, but I think it's worthy of having the conversation because
I mean, absolutely. I mean, if we could come out of this crisis with all of our unhoused people now having roofs over their head, what kind of a gift that would be. I mean, it would be a really amazing story, and it would be a really amazing good deed, and to show what the values of San Francisco really are.
Right.
It's tough. It's really hard, Rodney. I mean, $1 billion in the hole is not insignificant.
No, it isn't. But also, physically stepping over people for years is not insignificant either. And I, just as a humanitarian resident of the city, that can't go on.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you. I mean, I think we've gotten to the boiling point. It is a crisis. It was a crisis before this. It's a crisis now. It's even more of a crisis now. And so I understand the need for the push to get ourselves out of the old way of thinking. Totally.
Well, it's been a pleasure interviewing me.
Thank
Make
you.
A great guest.
You ask hard questions. Okay, let's get to the audience Q&A over here. All right. I lost the audience Q&A. Oh, there it is. A lot of people saying they love you. Lori, are you seeing with all this a reality of variance changes in zoning of current office spacing, restaurant, retail spacing into residential? So much potential with changes in zoning in resolving the housing crisis. What do you think?
I think the whole landscape of land use is going to change. As much as we love certain things, I think we are going to end up with a different pattern, a shift, a surplus of certain things, potentially a surplus of office space, potentially a surplus of PDR space. Housing pre-COVID was a big need. I'm sure you're hearing conversations about people not wanting to live in big metropolitan cities and having the pleasure, if they can, work through the internet, in Montana, and come in when they need to into the big city for certain things. I think you're going to see a major shift to people working 2-3 days from home, and the need to hold that big 37th floor office building, and pay that big rent. So I think you're going to see a natural change of use in land use changes. I'm very open to helping that conversation and just maximizing the amount of square footage that we have. and cities evolve. And so, sometimes it's retail, sometimes it's restaurants, sometimes it's housing, sometimes it's office, but they all need to coexist again.
Thank you, Rodney. Jill asks, the hospitality and events industry were already suffering in San Francisco prior to COVID-19. Do you have any ideas of what the future may look like for this industry? How to spin San Francisco back as an ideal destination city?
Well, we all love our restaurants. We're also proud of our food. I do believe that we had a lot of restaurant choices in San Francisco, and many of them, as you know, are restaurant friends. All of us have restaurant friends. The margin is so thin. They were competing with each other. They were competing for us. One thing to keep in mind, most restaurants that are successful serve a lunch and a dinner. San Francisco doubles in the daytime. That means we can serve a lot of lunches, but we really don't serve that many dinners. And so I think, maybe post-COVID, we're going to see fewer restaurants. They may be more profitable, though, the ones that are able to survive and get through on the other end of things. That's a little bit of a funny conversation to say, or a funny statement, but I think there's some reality in that. In paring down San Francisco may actually make it more viable for those who are remaining in those businesses.
Sean asked an interesting question. Rodney, given your background and experience, why did you take the job as CEO? And what is your 5-year vision for the chamber?
I took the job because I love the city, and I love the parks. I love the nonprofits. The business piece is a vital piece of the fabric of the city. You just can't walk away from that. However, whatever side of the argument that you're on, business are employers, and when a city is fully employed, it's a happy city. When it's not, it's a very unhappy city. So I wanted to help the city grow, and thought through the Chamber of Commerce, my work and my passion for all the other non-business things could maybe be pulled into play, and a passion for land use, a passion for planning, public realm, and how we enjoy the city, how we use the city. So that's it's really out of my heart. The goal for the next 5 years is to grow the chamber, to help represent small businesses, help the little guy. I'm a big underdog person, so to help the little guy make it to the middle or to the top, to help kids. What a big goal for me is to be able to watch someone maybe who's in eighth grade now get out of high school, get into one of our local great schools, and get a great job in a San Francisco company. If I could witness that, I'm witnessing that through my own kids, but some other kids that I don't know, that's even more powerful.
Clifford asks, Manny, are you jealous of Rodney's hairline? Yes, absolutely, I am. We were talking about that before the call. It is not fair. It's not fair.
But
Armand,
it's not fair. I can't grow a beard or a mustache like you. So.
Okay, I guess that's the equilibrium.
Right.
Armand Domilewski asks, on the question of business relief, given that the city is likely to face major budget shortfalls, it seems unlikely that it'll be able to slash a lot of fees for small businesses. That leaves regulatory reform as a major lever for business relief. What regulatory reforms or streamlining proposals are you considering at the chamber?
That's a very good question, and I don't know if we have the exact answer at the moment.
Okay.
But would love to, and part of our interview process with the task force is to ask those kinds of questions. What would you suggest? What would you do? But I don't have the answer, and I wouldn't at the moment take the chance of saying there's a magic secret pill that's going to help everybody.
All right, and let's close this out with a question from David Perry. Everyone's asking, what can the chamber do for me? What can we small business folks do to support the chamber and you're in this uniquely challenging moment?
You can help us. I know it sounds kind of hokey, but you can help us. Follow us on social media to help get the word out, help people get on board. I'm not talking about membership dues specifically, but just follow the movement of what's going on. We're going to be able to relay out a lot of information. And if you want to be part of the recovery in some way, shape, or form, or being more informed, following the chamber online is great, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And of course, just follow us and be supportive and be patient. We're all, Manny, I think I'd love you to have a whole discussion about this. This is tough for everybody, and business owners feel almost a personal frustration that their businesses aren't doing well. We're going to get impatient at a certain point. And we need everybody to be calm, to show love, to protect thy neighbor, to help each other, to chip in here. San Francisco's come out of some really bad things like earthquakes before, and how it did it was joining together and helping each other, not fighting with each other, but grabbing each other and lifting that heavy piece of whatever it is that needs to get moved. And we can do that if the city is open to that idea.
Well, thank you for that. My amazing operator has added the San Francisco Chamber's Twitter handle and Instagram in the chat. I expect everyone on this call to go into the chat box and follow them. Also, if you go to the chat box, you'll see the link to become a sponsor of Manny's. It's joinit.org/o/Manny's. It is how we are hoping and planning on riding out this wave so we can help other small businesses. We do want to stay in business as well. And so the way that we're doing is we're asking everyone on these calls to go to joinit.org/o/Manny's to become a sponsor. It's $36 a month. I also want to thank my staff over here, Jupiter, Sam, and Ram, for helping us make these calls possible. Again, it's joinit.org/o/Manny's. You can follow us at Welcome to Manny's. And finally, I want to thank Rodney Fong for being so amazing, for having such steady leadership. All those years from 1898 to 2020 prepared you for this moment, Rodney. I'm rooting for you, and I'm thankful to your service, okay?
Thank you, Manny. And I'm going to join Manny's right now when we hang up here. So
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.